how do you go about then? So you've had this thing, I want to write a book, I'm going to commit to write a book. So how do you condition yourself in your busy working life when you're seeing clients and you're generating business and you're dealing with staff issues? How do you go about writing a book?
So this is one of the weirdest questions I get, because you, Lee, are one of the busiest guys. You plan your life to within an inch of itself. You know exactly what you're going to be doing. If we can get this reason right, if we can get the sense of urgency right, then you will make the time. It's a concern people have, but until they've got that absolute nailed reason, why am I writing this? Because my clients are grappling with X, Y, or Z right now. The space clears itself. You'll stop watching Lost or Coronation Street or whatever project. You will make the time, but actually it is less time than you imagine.
Right.
So here's what's been happening to Jackie and me. We've been trying to get faster and faster. So we completely deconstructed the process of writing a book. Last year, I filmed a 1-hour live stream summarizing everything we'd done that week for 12 weeks. And we found, because I've done it 3 or 4 times now, that we can get a book from blank page to a book on Amazon in 12 weeks. And get this, still doing our day job.
Right.
Because we've deconstructed the process, we know that, in week 1, you reach out to a dozen or 15 people. Week 2, you do some interviews. Week 3, you get that we know exactly what needs to be done. We're not faffing about. So this is the process that we have come to deconstruct. And one of the things we've done is we've created a checklist, and I'll give you a link at the end that actually spells out what do you need to do over those 12 weeks to write a book. Now, most people perhaps won't manage it in 12 weeks, but even if you stretched it out into 12 months, that would be faster than many people would have considered before. So we suggest that a book can take you something between 6 and 9 months. And what we found is that if you can allocate an hour a day for 12 weeks, you can have a book on Amazon. Yeah. We have a 12-week video live stream series to kind of prove it. We basically kept track of everything we'd done. I kept a timesheet to show you exactly what we had done. So I'm not talking through my hat here. This is not, rule of thumb. This is actually what we have been doing for the last few years. So here's the key point. Don't obsess about the time just now. Concentrate on why you want to write. Where's the urgency? David Meerman Scott, I already mentioned him. He wrote a book called Standout Virtual Events. It's a lovely slim volume. How do you deal, if you're a keynote speaker, with this community? How do you deal with this situation? He used to speak on stage, but since February this year hasn't done anything. So he wanted to get a book out on how to create a standout virtual session. He also wrote it for people offering or running virtual events. So he basically sat down and said, I have to sort of stop everything to write this. And he sat down and just basically churned out 20,000 words, turned it into a Word document, threw it on Amazon. So the urgency drives you. Secondly, if you decide that you are going to make this happen, you will look at your schedule and say, which bits of my calendar can go? And you will make the time. Yeah. The other piece then is, what do I need to do? So we've got not only this checklist, but we turned it into an app. So we've got something called the Author's Grid. It's basically like a giant Gantt chart. And you go onto Author's Grid and you look at it and it says, this is week 2. You should be doing A, B, C, and D and nothing else. So you focus on the exact pieces of the puzzle that you need to do before you faff about thinking, this book, I've never written anything that's 30, 40, 50,000 words long before. So reason why gives you urgency. That also helps you create the space in your calendar. You probably need an hour a day. A couple of writers that we're working with do that first thing in the morning, so 6 a.m. till 7 or 7 till 8, something like that. And then once you're focusing on exactly what do I need to do, and it changes, the first part is research, your primary research. Second phase is writing. And then if you're going to publish it yourself, you need to consider the editing and the design, and that can happen later on. So what you need to do, you need to kind of educate yourself as to how that works or how the process works. But we've sort of done it for you, and happy to share that with you at the end of the session, if it's any use to people.
Thank you.
About an hour a day.
About an hour a day. Okay. So just with your experience, because you know, as I say, you're a best-selling author, you've published many books, we've seen some of them there. This is the slightly cheeky question that's come in. Does the world need another business book?
I don't know if you've read all the business books come out, but I read all the business books in my sector. And I think what's behind the question is somebody's looking at a book and saying, this is rubbish. And you're absolutely right. There are so many rubbish books out there. So imagine what would happen. You have a super client, an aspirational client. There's somebody you want as a client. I'm being very commercial about this, but let's go with this particular example. It might be somebody that you want to inspire with a memoir. But let's be commercial for a second. There's an aspirational client you've wanted for ages, or a particular kind of client. And they read this book. Oh, that's rubbish. And they're still struggling to find an answer to their problem. Oh, that's rubbish. Oh, my, wow. And then they find yours. If your book is the right answer to their problem that has been annoying them, that they have trawled through half a dozen rubbish books, that elevates the quality of your work and your IP and your thought leadership and the trust they imbue with you. You earn their trust even more. So the world needs better business books because there are so many rubbish books. Right. So be the person that writes that better business book. Because you're, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed person is king, So if you write a good book, it will stand out even more. And you've got word of mouth to contend with. So somebody finds, oh my goodness me, trusted advisor, David Maister, you've got to read this. This is like 30 years old, and it's still the best single book on this topic I have ever seen. There are other people writing about trusted advisor, but I tried to get him to come on the podcast, but he's retired now. He says, I don't talk for anybody. His colleagues are still running the business, but they are still running off his book. I mean, it is an asset that keeps on giving. And just to kind of go back half a step, one of the reasons I keep recommending Trusted Advisor, especially for people in our community, is the trust equation. He says trustworthiness equates to credibility, your credibility. So your professional training, all of our colleagues, all of our competitors have the same credibility. The reliability, which is, my word is my bond kind of thing. You're serving your people, as are all the competitors in your industry. The third element, intimacy. He makes this point that if you can deal with the most difficult issues that no one else can deal with, you're the person I'm going to trust most. So if your book is a good book with great stories, FP stories, then you enhance the level of intimacy. Even though they're reading you, they're hearing your words, they trust you far more than they did. And, without face-to-face meetings, and we have none of that happening at the moment. Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, is probably the only other halfway decent book on trust worth reading. And the large bulk of that is about building interpersonal relationships, which has completely gone for now. So if you wanted a way to build trust and transparency, share your stories, share your case studies, and it'll be so much better than 99% of the other texts out there for your audience. And they are trawling through these books, trying to find the answer, trying to find the person that they trust. Absolutely. It is well worth writing a book right now.